These are the tools we're going to need. You're going to need a clamp, a big C-clamp. You're going to need a breaker bar because there's a couple of bolts that are very tight. You're going to need a 3/4. It helps to have an impact, but it doesn't really matter. Just a 3/4 inch socket, a 10 millimeter, just in case you're going to have to loosen up the brake bleeder. And here's a 13 millimeter with an adapter, so you can use a larger drive. And this is the key. You're going to need one of these Torx tools, and this is size 45. It's a T45. You're going to need this to remove the caliper. You're also going to need a hammer and a block of wood. The hammer is so you can pound off the rotor, which gets pretty tight, and also the caliper can get stuck there, and we have the block of wood so you don't damage anything in case you have to use it to pound. Okay, but there are your tools. So we're going to remove the wheel. The way these lug nuts come off is they actually hold the hub, the wheel cover on, which honestly I've never seen it done like this before. But you can't take the wheel cover off unless you remove the lug nuts first. So let's break the lug nuts free. Okay, so there's your brake rotor, and let's get a good close-up shot of this brake rotor. This is really, really in bad shape. You're going to see what I'm talking about. This is just totally scalloped out, and you really can't appreciate how bad this is with this video, but it's almost like C-shaped. This is totally carved out, and so what we're going to do is we're not only going to replace the brake pads, which sit in the caliper here, but we're also going to take this rotor off and replace it. And I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to remove this clip. There's a little metal clip that's on this caliper. So you're going to be careful and you're going to remove it. You might actually need something like a pair of needle nose pliers to hang on to it while you take it off. And watch your eyes, you don't want that to spring into your face. Okay. Okay, in order to take the caliper off, again, this is your Torx. It's a number 45, it's a T45 Torx. If you don't have one of these, you're going to need one to remove this brake caliper. We're getting a close-up shot of this this piece here where you're gonna put the Torx, but there's a little rubber cap, little plastic cap that sits inside the So be careful when you remove these bolts, because what happens is if you're not careful, it can drop down into this shock tower here where the spring is. You see the spring here? And then it slides down into a little hole, like it just fell there, but it didn't fall into the hole. I'm telling you this from experience because when we did the other side, it fell into here. And when it fell into here, we couldn't find it for a good 20 minutes. Alright, so once you get both of these bolts loose, right, you have to take the caliper off. Now remember, the caliper is still being squeezed on because the brakes were just compressed, okay? So you're going to use something like a piece of wood or something or something to pry it out. You see what we're doing here? We're just kind of prying it off, and you might want to put a hand on here, because if you get it off, is it possible it's going to fall? Now he's taking a hammer and he's pounding on it. No. It's pretty tight. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. And there, a brake pad just fell out. And move the brake caliper out of the way, because there's a couple of lines connected to it, and you don't want to damage the lines. So you can take the pads off. They're just going to be sitting in this little holder here. Basically, you see how that goes? So they're going to fall out as soon as you take this thing off. You can see these brake pads are thoroughly worn out. Just like the rotor is really, really worn out, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to replace everything. So the next thing has to come off is this piece here, and the reason why you have to take this off is because there's no way you're going to get the rotor off unless you take this off first. There's two bolts holding it on. They're in the back. I'm not sure if you can see it from that angle, but it's a 13 millimeter.
Be nice if you could hold this.
Oh, hold on a second. Make sure this is recording properly. You're going to put a breaker on this because it's generally pretty tight. Is it looser?
Yeah.
Once you get it loose, then you can just go ahead and move to a smaller, easier ratchet. Okay. Now we're going to take that piece off and we're going to place it on the ground, and now we're going to work on trying to remove the rotor. Now the rotor's another story. That thing is going to be rusted on, so that's not going to do it. That's not going to do it. You'll take some WD-40, knucklehead. You'll spray around these areas. Watch. Little there, little there, little there, there. Now around the main hub, because that's where it's going to stick. And the best way to take off this rotor is to pound it from that side forward, and each time you pound it, turn it a little bit. Pound, turn, and eventually you'll see it start to come off. Gotta be, no, not like that, knucklehead. Okay, it's kind of hard to get leverage on this, but here we go. Like I said, you just got to be patient. Keep on pounding it, because it's on there good. Once you get it off,
It's off.
the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get the new rotor and place it on. Here's the rotor. As you can see, we bought this from Advanced Auto Parts. This is the YH477767 Aimco rotor, which is an aftermarket rotor that fits this 2013 Ford Escape 2.5 liter front wheel drive car. Okay, so we're going to take the rotor and we're going to place it on there and line up the holes with the bolts. Just push it into place. And then we're going to take our housing that holds the brake pads, and we're going to place that back where it came from, and we're going to line up our 13mm bolts. And first we're going to try hand tightening them, and then we're going to tighten them with a wrench and then a breaker to make sure they're nice and tight. If you have the correct torque settings, I recommend you use the correct torque settings and use a torque wrench to do it the right way. Okay, so we're going to make sure, after we hand tighten it, to make sure the threads are correct, we're going to tighten it up with a wrench. Again, if you have a torque wrench in the proper settings, go ahead and do it the right way. Just make sure it's extra nice and tight. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is, you have to compress this cylinder, because you're never going to, after you put the brake pads in place, you're never going to have enough space to put it in around the new brake pads. Okay, so you have to be able to push this caliper back down, and the best way to do that is to use like a big C-clamp, something like this, because you could take your C-clamp, come in like this, line it up, and just simply tighten the C-clamp up and compress the cylinder, the brake cylinder, back in. And there we go. Is it going in? Little by little, we're just going to turn it until it goes in. Is it going in? Mm-hmm. Okay. By the way, sometimes this doesn't go so easy. If it doesn't go so easy, you have an option. And one of the things you can do is, I'll show you, you can loosen this little, there's a little rubber cap right here, right? And here's how you bleed the brakes. So if for some reason when you're trying to squeeze the caliper with your clamp, you can't squeeze it, you can open this up, and that's simple. It's a very simple thing. I'll show you. You're going to take a 10mm, you're going to put it on here, and you're going to go counterclockwise. Just open it, get a little cup or something, because as soon as you open this up, as soon as you go counterclockwise, you're going to have some brake fluid leaking out of here. But that'll allow you to squeeze this in easily, because you'll be able to get some of the fluid to escape. And then once you squeeze this in, then quickly tighten this up. Don't let any air get in the lines. Then you have a whole other problem. And then you put this little cap back on, and you'll be able to go on your merry way. But if you start trying to clamp down on this with the C-clamp and you don't get it to squeeze, I wouldn't keep on squeezing it, because you might break something. Break a line or break the master cylinder. Got this over at Advanced Auto Parts. This is the GNAD1564 ceramic brake pads that fit this 2013 Ford Escape. There are 3 brake pads that they had there. Actually, they have 4. The cheap one's about 20 bucks. This is about 35. Then they go to like 50, and then they have one for like 70 or 80 bucks. Personally, my opinion, back brakes, you can go with the cheap ones or the middle of the road ones. The worst part about using the real cheap ones is it creates a lot of brake dust and sometimes they squeal. But this is a halfway decent brake pad, $35 ceramic brake pad, and we decided to use this in the back. So you're going to take your brake pads, and they fit right back onto this little housing here, just like a puzzle piece. Very careful. Make sure there's one brake pad that has this little metal spring on it. Make sure that's on the inside, closest to the car, not the outside. And now that the caliper is squeezed in, we'll be able to just slide it into place, and then we'll be able to line up our bolts again. Alright, let's not forget to put some of this, it's anti-squeal. Basically, you get it over at Advanced Auto or Pep Boys. When you're about ready to buy your brakes, they're usually sitting right there on the counter. It's just a little bit of this stuff. You get it in a little tube. And also that helps prevent any kind of squealing that you might have. And you're going to put it on any of the surfaces that touch the brake pads. I think it kind of dries like rubbery, and it just stops the vibration. And you don't want to have a squeal. There's nothing more annoying than a squealing brake every time you touch the brakes. So now we're going to just put it in place. And then we're going to grab our Torx. Make sure it's lined up because you're going to go crazy trying to catch those threads unless it's perfect. Make sure you put your little plastic caps back on. One there, and one there. And the last thing is we're going to put the little clip back into place. When you take it off, of course, make sure you remember how you took it off so you can easily remember how to put it back on. But if you just follow this video, you'll see it's not so difficult. Once the brake pads are back in, and on the caliper, and on the rotor, the rest is pretty easy. We're just going to put the wheel back on.